Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Spiritual Stuff and Fluff. And I'm so pleased to say that I'm joined today by Ross Van Der Hoek, and he's a medium, he's a psychic medium. He's also an actor, he's into a bit of all sorts. And we're going to be chatting today about his spiritual journey, and I'm sure that some of you will be interested in how to contact him, and we're going to discuss that at the end as well. So, hello, Ross.
Hi.
And can I also just add, Ross is from Vancouver. He's from BC, British Columbia and Canada. And we've
Right.
actually met a few years ago. Whether you can remember is another thing.
Hmm.
So, Ross, start by telling me what what got you into this spiritual journey? For me, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was a medium, and I grew up listening to her talking about this one and that one, and this dead person. And when I was 14, I first went to a spiritualist church, and I didn't go because I'd lost someone. I went because I wanted to see how these people pass messages. So the first time I went into a church, it was very much, who's telling them this? Who's crawling around on the floor? Where's the wires that they're being fed all this information? That was my first thing. But I also thought I was schizophrenic because I was hearing things. So what was your
Right.
start?
It's such a great question because even as a boy, so again, the short of my story, which I give people in my elevator pitch, I was actually born in Glasgow, Scotland,
Right?
and I grew up in Vancouver. And then one of the other in my earlier youth days, I played rugby.
Hmm.
And that was a catalyst that took me traveling. And as a boy, though, growing up, I was always intrigued by different world religions.
hmm
And so much so, like, why is there so much differences, and then why is there so much even similarities?
hmm hmm
And um and then obviously one of the I call it a benefit of growing up here was, especially because we initially lived in a place called Port Alberni, which was back then a small little town on Vancouver Island,
hmm
and
hmm
it was heavily populated as well by First Nations, so our Native Indians
Yeah,
bands that lived
yeah,
there. So I
yeah.
got to experience some of their cultures and beliefs, and we also got taught a little bit in school as well.
hmm
Expediting the story, where I really first got into it was in my early 20s. I moved back to Glasgow,
hmm
and again, the short of the story, one of the people that I worked with, she organized, we're going to go and see a psychic medium. I was like, oh, okay. And I was a little like, I wasn't sure about that. and, and then sure enough, Miss Brown was the lady's name. And sure enough, I walk into her, she had her attic. And when it was my turn to go, I was the last person of our group that went in there, and the energy was electric. And when I first walked in the door, back then, when I did believe kind of in the we'll say the devil for the sake of words,
hmm
what have I just done? We as kids, as teenagers, we played with the Ouija board and kind of stuff like
Exactly.
that, right? Anyways, again, giving you this, she was a catalyst for me.
hmm
She was a catalyst that said you need to go and explore the different spiritual centers or churches,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and that was my big kickoff. And interestingly enough, too, years prior to that, I would have been 15, 16. We went to Toronto to see a great uncle of mine with my mom and my brother, and we ended up getting a tea leaf reading, which I
Uh-huh.
didn't understand at that time. But
No.
it's remarkable. Some of the things that that lady said back then are still happening today.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyways,
Uh-huh.
that's kind
Uh-huh.
of my.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. It is like a carrot that gets dangled, isn't it? Because we get
Yeah.
told things and then we start to see it unfold and then we wonder what's next? What else is coming? What's there for we?
Oh, right.
You know? So were you aware? Did you know that you were aware of spirit before you went to the churches and before that psychic medium?
So, I always believed in something, and I knew there was something. I just didn't really
Hmm.
understand what.
Yeah.
And I remember years later, my grandmother said when I was a little boy, because we left Scotland when I was 3, and she said I had what back then what they call imaginary friend, and I think his name, if I remember correctly, was Trevor.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
They said I would talk to this little boy who was
Uh-huh.
called Trevor, and I don't remember that,
Hmm. Hmm.
but yeah, I think for me, it's an eternal process of awakening, and where each of
Yeah,
us are,
yeah.
whether you are like other people who started seeing them as children, as infants, and recalled that,
Yeah.
or people like me that kind of started to get in line or in tune with it more later life. But the core
Mhm.
aspect is
Mhm.
that no matter what, that we're all spirit,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And that's the thing that I tell people, it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't really matter to anyone except ourselves how we got into it. The
Right.
main thing is that we got into it and that
Yes.
that we found with connection.
Oh, right.
That's what matters, you
Yeah.
know.
No,
Um,
I agree.
the beginning for me, the beginning story, how each one of us got into it is important to us, but it's not really important to anyone else.
No,
You
and it's
know?
yeah, and it's so beautiful. If I could jump in on that, because again,
Hmm.
thinking of my grandmother when I was back there, because I lived back there for 5 years, and I got to live with her.
Uh-huh.
And I was fortunate enough at the then it was the Charing Cross Spiritualist Church just off Sucky Hall Street in Glasgow, and they were doing some proper old school stuff like they did.
Yeah,
They were doing like the trumpet circle, transfiguring.
yeah,
I was just, and at the time, I
yeah.
was like, wow, this is amazing. Not realizing like decades later, like they were doing some like old school stuff,
Oh yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and thinking, wow, that was my introduction to the whole kind of spiritualist stuff. I'm getting to do this.
Ah,
and
exactly.
and my grandmother said to me in the later years that I had, because I'd love to tell her the stories about what we would see, what we would do, or
Uh-huh.
what I'd watch. And she told me one day, and I got really choked up because it came out of the blue. And she said, because of all the stories you've told me, I won't die wondering anymore. I was like, talk about an instant lump in my throat.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
It's like,
But, the thing is is another thing I tell people is, mediumship, psychic mediumship, whichever way you want to look at it, you
sure,
know, the main reason is for healing. The main
right?
reason is, to give comfort.
Yeah.
And I totally get where you're coming from there because an uncle of mine, just a couple of years ago, he passed and he never believed in anything like that.
Oh, lovely.
Didn't believe in anything like that. And then I started looking after him. Maybe it's about a year before he passed. And just out the blue, he said to us, he said, are you still a witch? And I started,
I love it.
he said, are you still a witch? And I started laughing and I
Oh,
said, do you mean it is, am I still talking to, dead people? And he
right.
went, yes, all of that. I went, yes. And then he started opening up and talking about, people who he'd never thought about for a long time. And I wonder if I'm going to be with him. And I wonder if I'm going to talk to them, and it was so lovely because he, he's, he was wondering, would he be together with his mother, which is my grandma,
Oh,
my
oh,
maternal grandma,
yeah.
you know, and he passed at my home with me by his side. And it was so peaceful because he'd been frightened of passing.
Wow.
And it was so peaceful because
Wow.
he'd got that peace, he'd got that hope, he'd got that, you know, whether he finally did believe in the other side. I think he did because there was a couple of things that he would say, he would be talking and he would say, I've been dreaming and I seen this one. And I used to say to him, well, you might not have been dreaming. They might
Yeah,
be there by your side.
it's so lovely. It's such a beautiful share that,
Hmm.
and again, not to jump the gun with too much, but it's amazing because you triggered a memory. And I don't know about you, but generally when I give readings, I don't remember the core of what was given because the
No,
majority it's really got nothing to do with me, but I generally can always get a lesson or I get some type of inspiration. And I'll tell the person, I'm like, oh, I can take a little bit of this in my own life
yeah,
right now,
yes,
whatever comes in. But I remember, unless some things are really, really profound, especially clairvoyantly, if something I've just like that blew my mind. And I remember a story similar to what you were saying, this young lady I was reading for, and it was about her father that was crossing over. And the vision they showed me was, it was like we were in this wooden, they took me in this wooden room, and the little boy was on one of those old style metal frame beds. And
hmm
the father had turned into a little boy. And the lady, which I wasn't sure if it was the mother at the later stages or the grandmother, because she came in as an older lady with a typical
hmm
kind of white night yeah, bed
yeah,
dress
yeah,
that they would wear.
yeah,
And she came into, oh, I'm going to choke up. It was so beautiful. Um, and the little boy got out of bed and he had one of those old school roughy kind of teddy bears that he had in his left hand, and
yeah.
the woman was holding him in her left hand, his right hand, and
Hmm.
it was if that's how he crossed over. She brought him into the spirit that way. I'm tearing up
Uh-huh.
watching this, telling this lady what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, not to it's just that's one of the beauties, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
how what you were saying triggers one of those memories.
Uh-huh. And that's the thing, as you say, we all get a little bit of a message or a little bit of healing
Yes.
when we give messages, because, you know, when you think about it, for how many readings we do, how many healings we do through mediumship, through readings, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel as though I could sit and cry for 2 days to get
Oh,
over the traumas that come through in
yeah,
the readings.
yeah.
Not just the traumas, but when you see someone, it is such a beautiful feeling when you see someone, all of a sudden they've got the realization there that their loved one's there by their
Oh,
side,
yeah. Yes.
you know.
I love too. I think one of the greatest my inspirations why I continue to do it, I love the laughter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny too because of different places that I go to. Um, and I've got one of those kind of a little bit louder laughs that people, oh my God, there he goes again.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought about that, about my own laughter. But but it's funny too because we'll come out of reading stuff like that, and who's ever there, whoever owns a place, so like, sounds like you had a pretty good time in there. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, the individual came in and they showed their personality, and they're a really fun, entertaining person. And this
Mm-hmm.
is another reason why I prefer personally. I don't like to read for close friends or family. One, I just find it as a personal boundary, and
Yeah.
two, I know things about them already,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just my own preference.
Mm-hmm.
But the laughter when stories come in or characters come in, it's like you just can't make it up.
Yes. Yes. And the thing is, I don't know about you, but have you ever, have you ever made a connection for someone and enjoyed the connection with the spirit person so much that you've kind of long after the reading, it's like, come back and talk to us. Come back and give us a laugh again.
Yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful one that because what I generally say to people when I find those souls come in, I say, I would have probably got along really well with this person. I said I could see myself wanting to be friends with it because they're just comical.
Uh-huh.
um, and they're very straight. And again, it's for me being fortunate enough to have lived both in Scotland for you, and then I ended up before I moved back to Canada. I
Hmm.
lived 8.5 years in London. That was another huge catalyst because, as
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
there's spiritualist places everywhere.
Yep.
And,
Hmm.
um, yeah, it is really the beauty of those connections
Uh-huh.
that we get. Just
Definitely.
and the upliftment too.
Definitely.
If I'm down,
Okay. Uh-huh. So, so you do readings, you do stand up. Do you just do churches or do you do private events or public
Yeah,
events as well?
do a little bit of it all.
Uh-huh.
I I do the and again to go back to a little bit of my of how I got to where I am today. So
Yeah, yeah.
expedite my time. Again, the short of my story, I spent 20 years from the age of 20 to 40, and I went and lived and traveled all over the world. I
Uh-huh.
lived I lived in 8 different countries. And the
Did you?
last one, yeah, and the last one that I finished up before coming back to Canada, I was 8.5 years in London,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just outside of Wimbledon, so there was three spiritual churches right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Again, the short of the story, um, one of my friends who was a medium, she's like, "Look, you need to come and sit in my circle, and then I want you to come and do the platform at other
Yeah, yeah.
churches
Uh-huh.
with me."
Mm-hmm.
So that was my catalyst into moving me forward. And then to answer your questions, when I moved back to Canada, I started to do some volunteer work with one of the spiritualist centers here.
Mm-hmm.
And then as life or spirit directs us in our life journeys, I started to do public events. I got
Mm-hmm.
invited as psychic wellness fairs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I got into that, and then some bookstores were like, "Hey, we'd like you to be one of our monthly readers." I got into that, and then I decided to do some of my own events,
Mm-hmm.
public events. So I would do
Yeah, yeah.
open, yeah, group events, and a few years ago, choke up. I ended up doing it with my dog. I had a yellow Labrador,
Yeah.
Azrael.
That was real. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
him and I would do events together, and some of the bigger public ones, people would book just because they wanted to see him.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And a couple of the bookstores are like, just bring him. You can have him and sit there with
Uh-huh.
you. And it was
Yeah.
amazing energy that he brought to
Uh-huh.
it. I haven't
Uh-huh.
seen too many other people do that.
No.
I was inspired though. He's a very spiritual animal, like they all are. But anyways,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah. So and then I'm still doing various private events, one-on-ones, international Zoom,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a little bit of it all.
Yeah. And what else is on your journey, do you feel as though is on your journey now? From where you are now, where do you think is next for you? Are you going to move into teaching? Are you going to move into traveling with your mediumship? Where do you feel
Yeah,
is next there for you?
it's a really interesting question because, and again, I'm a relatively transparent individual about my own
Mm-hmm.
journey. And even the last 3 years, I've been pulled, twisted, uh, even so much so the different experiences that I went through. I had to walk away for some friendships, and it was like anything I put my energy towards, I just couldn't make things happen. And I was just, and
Yeah.
I began to question my faith. Even I said, how can this be? But I
Mm.
do have a deeper belief. I'm like, yeah, but we all signed up for it,
Yeah.
and we all
Uh-huh.
signed up for whatever experiences that were experiences. We asked for it, and it's a hard pill sometimes to swallow.
Yeah.
Really is.
Uh-huh.
um, and one of the ways I describe it to people, I say it was almost like I went through symbolically like a washing machine
Mm-hmm.
cycle, and then
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh God, this is finally over. And then I went through a drying cycle of it all,
Yeah.
and in the midst of it all, I had to put the dog down. I was like, okay, I am broken now,
Yeah. That
broken.
uh-huh. And and I've got to say, and obviously, I've seen some of your journey on Facebook,
Hmm.
and I've seen one thing that's always stood out to us is how upbeat you still continue to be.
Thank you.
Because your lives, when you're in your car sitting in traffic, you still have a laugh. You still have something positive to say, you know.
Right.
And there was one day, I wasn't, I think I was having a bit of an off day, and I picked my phone up and I went on Facebook, and the first thing that came up was you. I think you were traveling somewhere, you were going to work or somewhere, and
Right.
you're laughing, and I was, and it made me laugh. It picked me up definitely.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. And it was, and I can't even say that you were talking about anything positive. It was basically you were looking at a bit of a negative situation. I think you were talking about being stuck in the traffic, and it was a bit of a pressure cooker and things. But you brought the funny twist to it, and you were still laughing.
Oh, right.
And I remember thinking to myself, you know, it is, that's exactly, you know, you've got to turn the negative into a positive and you've just got to laugh at it.
I wonder if that was a day, because if there was a day I was frustrated that I couldn't get anything to happen on the one particular day, and I
It could
thought
have been that
I gotta
day.
do a little talk about this right now, because I was like,
Yes.
I need to hold this a little bit here, but it was like I'm so frustrated.
That's the one. That's the one. Yes, because you were very
I just
frustrated.
couldn't make anything. I was like, are you
Yes,
kidding me?
that's the one because I remember you saying you were frustrated and whatever was happening and everything seemed to be going against you.
Yeah,
But you know the thing is, you know, and I don't need to tell you this, but you know when you go through a period of change where it's like a period of growth and you're being moved from one area
yeah,
to another. It's always like a change period where you lose friends, you gain new friends, you
yes,
know. So that's probably what's been going
yeah.
on for you.
And I agree with you. And to kind of to go back to your question about what's next, and
Hmm.
one of the other positive aspects, I said, well, it's unfortunate that I've decided, or friendships have decided to move away.
Hmm.
But I thought, okay, so what's a positive thing? Kind of like what you were saying there. I said, well, doesn't that open up space for new people and new energy to come into my life? And that if
Exactly.
another pathway is meant to be, that whatever that is,
Hmm.
like
Hmm. Hmm.
hold that as a positivity. And um, yeah, there's definitely some things. I guess I always feel part of me to wanting to be part of, like the philanthropist. Like I
Yeah.
like part of me has to. It just wants to naturally serve, and whatever that
Hmm.
is.
Hmm. Yes.
Um, it just feels like that's a soul energy.
Uh-huh.
Um,
It's
yeah,
it's fulfilling your spiritual destiny, really, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I got a pending autobiography, which was from
Hmm.
all my years of traveling.
Hmm.
And I got a friend that's just kind of casually editing it for me right now. So hopefully I'll be able to get that out this year. And it's interesting because I don't talk about any of the spiritualist stuff until the
Hmm.
end of the book.
Yeah.
So I let people get to know me, and I tell about all the different countries and my
Hmm.
experiences. And then I'm like, at the end of the book, I'm like another side of me. Then I talk about all the spiritualist stuff because I
Yeah.
get it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and for some
Hmm.
people, it's a lot. So I'd rather they get to know me first, and then it's like, oh my god, this guy's he's out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. Uh-huh. And
Yeah,
you know, I knew that well, I didn't know that you were born in Glasgow, but I've got to say you haven't got no Scottish accent in the um
no, no, because
accent there.
yeah, I was 3, and then I left here. I started my travels when I was 21.
Uh-huh. Yeah. In all the countries that you went to, did you practice spiritualism or was there some countries that you weren't able to?
Um, well, I was always grateful for the
Hmm.
experience,
Yeah.
especially living in country. So again, just the short of the story. So from Glasgow to Vancouver, then I had 4.5 months in New Zealand,
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
rugby exchange, which
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
to work, and then I got to understand again like parts of the Maori culture. So it's like getting educated, not
Yeah.
just holiday,
Yeah.
understanding culture. And then from there, went back to Vancouver for a couple of months, 5 years in Glasgow,
Hmm.
3.5 years in the south of France.
Hmm.
One of those years, I was on the island of Corsica, which is
Right.
they're like another culture to
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
And then from there, I did a year and a half in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Hmm.
which I got into the medical industry. I did 10 years in that industry. And then I moved to the company, shipped me to Germany. So I lived a year, based myself in Cologne, and traveled all around the country selling tracheobronchial and esophageal stents. And then I finished up eventually 8.5 years in London,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then back obviously here. And but I always had that inner connection, and even at the times where I wasn't say practicing the spiritual things. Like when I was living in France, for example, in the villages that I lived in, I was always drawn, go to the cathedrals. So I was like, why? Just go,
Yeah,
just go. And it
yeah.
was about picking up the energy. And
Hmm.
it was about, I think, more or less about having that peace and that self-belief, I
Hmm.
think was part of that.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, it's so interesting that you say, that you've traveled to as many countries. Do you think travel's in the future for you? Can you see yourself traveling with
Yeah,
a mediumship? Can you see yourself
probably.
traveling?
Yeah, because I have family as well in Australia. My
Uh-huh.
biological father is there and his family, and I'm quite close with the cousins.
Yeah.
So I've been there a few times, and I connected up with, I think it's Norlunga, which is in Adelaide. So I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I'm coming to town if you guys feel comfortable. I'm like, this is what I've done, and blah blah blah. And they're like, yeah, we love you. So I got to be
Yeah.
the guest speaker at
Uh-huh.
one of the services, and they said, if
Uh-huh.
you ever come back, we would love for you to come
Uh-huh.
again.
Yeah.
And I like making those connections. You know,
Mhm.
as big as the world is and diverse as all of our different countries are, at the end of the day, we all got to look in the mirror,
Exactly.
right?
Ex-
We all got to look in the
Exactly.
mirror.
You know, and that's the thing. Would you say that well, I think I think I can definitely say that you probably live a spiritual life. There's a lot of people who are mediums or psychic mediums and they don't practice a spiritual life.
Oh, right, right.
But I would say, the vibe I get from you is that you do practice a spiritual life.
Try, or I try, and I even consciously try to do it. Um, it's interesting as well. For the last year, I've been kind of fascinated at listening and watching the documentaries of people's near-death experiences,
Yes.
and and,
Yes.
and they kind of blow my mind. Even and because it's almost like how everybody, like kind of what you're saying there, how each of us live our life or where our thought pattern, our
Hmm.
mentality is. That's generally a big impact on how we cross over or how we get introduced
Yeah.
at a core level or a base level. And then
Yeah.
again, depending on how open each of us are,
Hmm.
that seems
Hmm.
to expand.
Yeah.
And yeah, to try to keep conscious of that how big my actions, little or small, but they have an impact in the greater scheme. And I'm like, better watch what you say.
I know. Yeah. This is it. I must admit, I believe that personal growth goes hand in hand with mediumship. That's my belief.
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of people that don't believe that, but I do believe that. Now, and I must admit, these days I'm more conscious. Well, for a few years, I've been more conscious of my actions more than when I was years ago when I was a teenager or in my 20s.
right.
But now I'm very conscious of my actions, my words, everything. Because, as I say, words are living things,
Yeah,
actions are living things, and
yes,
we don't know what someone else is going through. If we're having an off day and we're maybe a little bit short with someone, we
right,
can be starting a domino effect of a bad feeling,
right.
upset. But at the same time, we can also be starting a domino effect by just smiling at someone and just, hello, how are you? We could
Yes,
be starting that domino effect as well. I'm
yeah,
all for, I'm all for if I can help someone, I'll help someone. I'd rather help than hinder,
yeah. No,
you
I
know?
love that. Yeah, I generally when I'm walking as well, if I can make eye contact with someone walking, I will definitely do. And I consciously become aware. I'm like, why wouldn't I want to spread some positive or share positive
Yes.
energy? No matter if I
Yes.
know you,
Uh-huh.
just smile, hello, and
Yeah.
that's it. Doesn't matter. One of my other favorite things to do is to hold the door open for somebody. You're at it
Uh-huh.
wherever that is. It
Yeah.
takes nothing, but it has for me it has so much meaning. It
Mhm.
really does something so simple.
Yeah, yes, I get you. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree, So I do believe, that it takes nothing to help someone else.
Oh, right.
and it's grown our spirit at the same time.
Yeah.
It's grown our spirit at the same
Perfect.
time. So, you know, but I've got to say though, you are such a happy person.
Thank
And I'm sure that you've had your hard times in the past, and I'm not going to ask you, but as mediums, I've always found that a lot of the mediums that I've talked to have came through some really heavy times.
you.
And
Yeah.
for some reason, I don't know why, but high percentage of mediums do seem to come through things that other people would never have thought of,
Right.
you know. And I believe that it's as you say, we've signed up for it.
Yeah.
Have we signed? I believe that some of us have signed up for life to be a little bit harder than someone else's life. Uh,
Sure.
you know, um, I believe that, and it's how we get through it. How we get through it.
Yeah. The however we want to describe that, the tests or
Uh-huh.
trials,
Yeah.
tribulation, and
The
the
lessons, everything. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
but the other aspect too, that where, because I like a lot of those different types of positive posts and
Mm-hmm.
inspirational that I always like to share on social media. And I think, okay, so I've gone through this rocky, like just like wrenching time, like questioning so
Mm-hmm.
many things. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, so how beautiful is that? That now I can feel my energy is coming back on the rise again. And when all that other, when I'm at another, say another peak, or that where that energy is just like, oh my God, like I just everything is just falling into place. It's like
Uh-huh.
this is the greatest time again to be gratitude, because I held my gratitude when I was going through it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
things are going to change. I'm learning right now. I'm expanding right now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable right now. I'm vulnerable. I'm
Mm-hmm.
exposed.
Mm-hmm.
and, and to try to have that gratitude and appreciation throughout the process. And it's a challenge for me,
Yeah.
right? Earth
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Earth school.
Exactly. It's like as I say to people, being a spiritual person doesn't mean to say that we have to, turn the other cheek all of the time.
No.
For me, being a spiritual person is just being myself, being human because we are human.
Mhm.
We can choose what if we do react to people, and we can be a bit snappy, wouldn't be a bit bad tempered, wouldn't do all that because we're human.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of, if we can remember at the back of our head that at the same time we're made up of spirit and, you know, again, try and help someone. If you can't help someone, don't hinder them. Leave them alone and just don't hinder them. You
Right.
know, that's the way that I've always looked at things, and it is just, and it can be so frustrating. It can be so frustrating when we see friends and family doing things, making choices that we know are the wrong choices for them. It can be so hard to not say, whoa, think about it. But we've
Yeah.
all got to we've all got to make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. That the journey,
Hmm.
the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the journey of it all.
Hmm.
One of the things I find quite fascinating about the near death experience is how they talk about how, and exactly what you're going on there about all of our thoughts, feelings, our energy, the things we've said, the feelings that we've projected on other people, and
Hmm.
how we end up feeling how that other person felt, good, bad,
Yes.
or indifferent.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And the
Yeah.
majority of the time, every time they say, like when they will just use the words for communication, when
Hmm.
they wrong somebody or been judgmental or heavy, that they felt exactly how that other person said. And every single time they say it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, yes. One thing that I'll share is years ago. Well, my husband's been past nearly 17 years, and it was a really depressing, dark time for me. Now, there was, and I was really not in the best of headspaces. And, you know, go forward few years, things started to go wrong for me, just as you said before. It's as though you in that washing machine cycle. Things started going wrong for us. Friendships started to break down, and I couldn't understand why.
Right.
Things, and it was like I felt as though I was banging my head against a brick wall all of the time.
Right.
And I just couldn't. But at the same time, I couldn't make head nor tail of it, but I kind of could because I would look at it and say, it's karma, because I said this horrible thing and I thought that horrible thing when my husband was dying and I was
Right.
feeling anger and things like this. And I thought it's karma. Karma's come back. Karma's paying us back because I said this and I said that and I did that and I did that. And I remember. I sat for quite a while and I started to try to turn my thoughts around, to go to the gratitude. What can I learn from it? I forgave myself. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have made those decisions. And then
Right.
I did start to notice a turnaround. Um, in my life. And I started to find it easier when friends were dropping away because I would look at it and think to myself, it's not that we fell out. It's just that, as I say, people in my life, they can be like a glove, and a glove's got 5 fingers, and people can fit those 5 fingers at any time. And
Mhm.
then things will happen and they start to only fit 4 fingers. Or they only fit 3 fingers, or they
Right.
only fit 2 fingers. And that's because they're moving away to their path.
Right. Yeah.
And then eventually, as they don't fit any of the fingers, that's when we let go. And
Right.
for their own growth and ours, it can be hard, but as we move forward, we grow and they grow. It's not to say that we won't come back together at some point,
Mhm.
but that's the way there are. Choose to look at it. It's the 5 fingers letting go.
Yeah. That's a nice analogy. Yeah, that's comforting. Because we do. Everyone has their own
Mhm.
paths.
Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I do as well. I consciously, even with people, I have my differences at. I'm thinking, okay, well, that's whatever that is. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I want to wish that person well,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
and I wish that person would actually wake up, or what if that person actually did want to have some accountability for their actions, and that would be great because it's never too late at any age to own that.
Yeah, uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And myself included. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe I need to wake up a little bit more on some of my own judgmental thought, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the process of it all.
Yeah. And the thing is, when we go through accountability, ourselves are the ones that will tell the biggest lies to.
Yeah,
We avoid a lot of things, and we kind of make allowances for our behaviors, we'll make allowances, and it is about being accountable, as you say, because that makes a massive big difference. You know,
right.
um, I do a lot of things with I follow Tony Robbins, the personal
Yeah,
growth and things like
right.
that. And I can be very hard on myself. Um, don't always like it, but you know, um, I'm now more. I'm now. I don't tell myself lies as quick as what I used to. I'm
Oh yeah.
quicker to turn it around and say, "Stop making this," he says, Elaine. You know,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's good, sometimes I don't like looking at it that way. But
yeah,
that's what we'll do it and then we'll grow. You
yeah.
know, we'll do it and
But
we'll grow.
sorry to interrupt you, because it's
Mm,
exactly as you were saying that, because the other important thing that and this has been another process for myself is to give myself that every now and again, that pat on the back. And it's not about being conceited or and not in any type of big headed type of way. It's like, hey, well done, man. Like, I'm proud of you. what you've been experiencing, how you've been doing that, or
Uh-huh.
some of the decisions. And that probably wasn't the best decision, but okay, we can learn from that.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
I'm proud of some of the things at least that
Hmm.
uh, I'm doing. Not everything, but at least we have to give ourselves that credit as well. Otherwise, like you say, if we beat ourselves down that much, and we're we're our own worst critic, and we're going to get locked in here.
Exactly. Exactly. And if we do get locked in our head, you know, we begin sometimes we can begin that washing cycle with self when
Yeah,
sometimes there's no reason for it. We just create it, you know. We just create it. But one thing that I do want to mention is a mutual friend, Lynn Marie. Now,
oh
I
yes,
noticed that not long before she passed, I know she'd done, or was she due to do a dam with you with First United, or has she just
yeah,
done one?
yeah, yeah. We they have every, I think it's the last Friday of each month at First
Uh-huh,
United. They do uh, guided messages from Spirit. So the
uh-huh,
last couple of years, Lynn and I, when it was each of our turns to do it, we decided, she, it was her idea. She's like, we should do these together. I'm like,
yeah,
fine.
uh-huh,
And it was it was really lovely too, because I remember, excuse me, just shortly after that she had made her transition,
uh-huh,
I was the chair for the First United, and two
uh-huh,
friends of mine, they were the guest speakers or mediums for the day.
uh-huh,
Sure enough, at one stage they were like, "Hey, what are you picking up?" And I could feel Lynn Marie standing on the platform beside me, and she was like dancing around,
uh-huh,
telling everybody this. And then, sure enough, and then there was even a song that came in, and then, sure enough, a few of the people afterwards, they had shared what they had picked up. They had
uh-huh.
felt it as well, and the song was attached to one of the guys. It was their song.
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
I was like, you just can't make it up.
No, no. I know she had a huge big heart. She had a
Yeah,
huge big heart.
yeah.
She had a massive big heart. I've known Lynn Marie since 2015.
Oh, lovely.
First, when she first invited us to First United, uh,
Right.
because I've done the greetings from Spirit on the Friday night and some
Yeah.
service. But she's a massive big miss. And I'd just been talking to her. Well, the funny thing was, in 2020, I was booked to come back over, and obviously COVID. And then after COVID finished, for me, COVID was a bit of a blessing. It gave us a chance to take time out, to be totally honest with you. Anyway, and and then when COVID ended, me, pardon me, my daughter fell pregnant, and in 2023, I was going to come back over to Vancouver, and my daughter said, "No, I don't really want you to be going away. I'd rather you be here, with us having a baby." I says, "Right, okay then." So I didn't. And then in 2024, I was supposed to be there in September, for a month. Because I normally do quite a few things when I'm there,
Yeah.
serendipity in different places.
Yeah.
And in the I would say in April, May, I started getting the feeling that I wouldn't be going.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we'd discussed dates, everything was sorted out, everything. I hadn't booked the flights because I normally leave that till a bit last minute to get flights booked just in case. And I started to get the feeling that I wouldn't be going, that I wouldn't be coming over. And then, and when I was talking to Lynn, different times, um, I just had the feeling that I wouldn't be there. And then when she passed, it made sense to me why I had started to get the feeling that I wouldn't be there because I was supposed to be staying with Lynn Marie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I actually would have been there at the time when she passed.
Wow.
Hmm.
How amazing is that?
Yeah. And then she came through to us probably a couple of days later. She came through to us.
Oh, how beautiful.
Uh-huh. But she had a massive big heart, Lynn. She really did. She had a huge big heart, and she loved spirituality in
Okay.
general, you
Yeah.
know. She loved that. She had a massive big heart. She had, and one of the things that one of the last time I was over there, she had said to us this, she says, "We're gonna go shopping. Bring your passport." And I says, "Why do I need my passport?" She says, "You'll need your passport." I says, "Right, okay then." Anyway, and I was staying in the is it Sky to Sky, um down on the quayside, the two apartment blocks
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
across from
Downtown.
ah the two big Sky to Be or something, or anyway, the two big tower blocks. I was in there. And so when she had got there, she rang up, she says, "I'm here." I says, "Right, I'm coming down." So went down. I says, "Where are we going?" She says, "I'm going to take you somewhere special. Have you got your passport?" And then we went over the border, went shopping in Seattle and, Tottenham and all that. And I was
Yeah.
like, this brings a new slant to going shopping for the day. I says, "We're just going into another country." I
Yeah.
said, "Not in another town, but another country." I says,
Yeah.
"Great." She introduced us to Trader Joe's, all of that, I loved all of that. But she's still a big miss. She's still a big miss. And she'd studied our mediumship with me for the past, well, since 2015.
Oh, lovely.
Me mentorships and everything. Uh,
Lovely.
but she just had a massive big heart.
Yeah.
She really had a massive big heart. Her heart was always with the church, with everyone. She really had a good heart.
And who knows what she even did outside, because living like the way that she did, I'd imagine, and being that source of energy, I would imagine that just, and nothing's ever random, but say random encounters, but they're not random. And what
No.
she would have done in her own personal life
Hmm.
that would be unseen but spiritually seen, if that makes
Yes.
sense,
Yes.
right? And
Hmm.
I'd imagine she did a lot of that
Hmm.
is because she's just being her,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Same as Rick. Same as Rick. That was a shock as well.
Right, yeah.
That was just a shock.
There was like a wave of people, and even outside of the church there was even like others. I was like, what is going on these days?
Oh.
It's like, what?
It was the same here. It was the same here. I was losing friends. And then Lynn Marie and then Rick, and then there was someone else. And I was saying, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
It just was, it was, I don't know.
yeah, no,
I don't know.
I feel you. It's an interesting one too, where you were talking about your intuition or your spirituality, however people want to phrase it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you were like, I don't think I'm going to go on this trip. And I had a very similar thing, funny enough, too, with the boy Azrael, my dog,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of halfway through, maybe 6 months or so prior to his crossing,
Mm-hmm.
and it was coming into his 10th birthday, and I could even energetically feel it's like that's his cutoff, and I was like, what? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's his cutoff point, the feeling, and I thought, well, I'm spoiling him. And
Mm-hmm.
people kept on saying he's only 9.5. Why do you keep saying 10? And I never said anything because I didn't really fully understand it. And then when it came to that point, I was like, oh my God, it makes sense now. But that was his time. He
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
spiritually he's around me a lot, and he
Yeah.
still does. He's like he does the stuff on the other side.
Yeah.
It's amazing, like where it's like that where we just know, and it's almost a little eerie.
Uh-huh.
Despite even doing
Yes.
this, despite even
Yeah.
doing this kind of work, it's almost, what are you telling me here?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? I was talking to someone a few days ago and they said, no one knows the future. I went, no, no one knows the future.
Oh,
But sometimes we can feel the future.
yeah,
We can feel what the future could be,
right. Yeah,
you know?
yeah. You
So,
know,
can I just ask,
yes.
you're changing the slant there. How did you get into acting, Ross?
So I've always been intrigued by it. Ever since a boy, I was always intrigued a little bit by the theater,
Hmm.
and and um, and I love to see people laugh as well.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
absolutely love it,
Hmm.
and yeah, again, I ended up one of the years in Glasgow. I ended up doing a commercial for the newspaper, the Herald,
All right, uh-huh.
which is kind of cool. And then from here, um, I actually got, again, funny enough, talking about the dog Azrael. I got him an agent as well. So
Right,
he did a few internet commercials. He did a short film, and I would do like TV film background work for all
right.
different types of series. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I'm fascinated because I'm one of those individuals as well. I like watching how like the directors and the how the team
Hmm.
how they're
Hmm.
doing all the back scene stuff, let alone what the actors and actresses are doing. And it's like
Yeah.
the production of some of these. I just find it amazing to what we turn on the TV and that's that, but it didn't come from that, right?
No. I asked because I wondered if because as mediums, we understand energy and we're able to manifest. So I was
Right.
wondering if you ever practice manifesting and managed to manifest some of your acting in.
Yeah. And there's some other things up and coming right now
Hmm.
as well. And there's one of them is a short film that's to do with Capilano Film and Art University. So they have
Right.
like the students are always doing. So I've got a gig that's coming up with one of them,
Hmm.
and then I'm pending a few others, whether or not they come through or not. But the
Yeah.
auditions have been out there, and I have thought as well that that would probably be an area that I would like to go into. And again, it's for me the biggest kick about it is inspiration. Like
Hmm.
whatever the role that I'm playing, is it making people laugh, smile? Is it giving them an emotional experience? And for me,
Yeah.
that's the intrigue
Hmm.
of it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, yeah, I'm sure I would enjoy a bit of a lifestyle like that, or at least somewhat diverse, I think.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I'll be honest with you, I was quite surprised, but not surprised when I seen that you were in The Good Doctor.
Oh,
And
right.
it's another show because I watch all of The Good Doctor.
Oh, right.
Um,
Yeah.
I had to go back through and see the parts that you were in.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that you were making after The Good Doctor as well. Um, but the thing is, your life has been through a lot of twists and turns. The traveling, the rugby playing, there's
Mm,
beginnings in Scotland, moving to Canada,
yeah.
Vancouver. And then the diversity of, because you're also in real estate as well. So the
Right.
real estate, sales,
Yeah.
um, the spirituality, the mediumship, the acting. So you've got quite a lot of things going on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how it's all or how it plays out.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then, but I still question it all. Like I still
Hmm.
question, am I really doing
Yeah.
what I need to be doing, or
Do you think that your life is easy? What I mean by that is, do you think that you've had to, some people can want things in life, or some people don't necessarily want things in life, but some people have to work hard to make things happen. Other people, things just seem to fall into place. Would you say that a lot of things in your life has just fell into place?
I, yeah, I would think. I guess if I could use the word, and it's interesting that because feel that even now, if I could give a description,
Hmm.
where it would be whatever like divine timing is,
Yeah.
and because I can even remember in my travels, especially living in France, like I didn't, there was never any big money in the rugby. I'd
Yeah.
accommodate,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd get a car, which was
Hmm.
great, but I struggled like financially and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And even one of the
Hmm.
summers, I ended up, it hit a bunch of stuff hit the fan, but for whatever reason, I didn't want to go back to Scotland. It was like, no, you need to stay here.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And I even acquired a puppy dog at that time too. I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, man, like I'll talk about living a culture, life change. And I got to this little village called Saint Mary de la Mer, which
Hmm.
is the Camargue, not far from Marseille in the province.
Yeah.
And I as soon as I got off the bus and got in there, and I looked to the sky and I said to Spirit, I said, can I please stay here?
Hmm.
And I didn't have anything. I barely had any money and nothing, and everything just kind of fell into place. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'm really grateful that I got to experience living in this, because it's a town. It's the last country town in all of France, the
Yeah.
Camargue. They have those white horses, they have the black bulls, they grow wild rice. It's it's
Nice.
a culture.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But the thing is, so you mentioned grateful there, and I was just going to say to you, do you think that things have fell into place for you because of your gratitude attitude?
I hope so,
Uh-huh.
but it's definitely been the roller coaster.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And then I even in that, when I get my frustrated, and even now that I'm coming out of this transition period that I've been in, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying to myself more and more, I'm like, Ross, but
Yeah.
this gives me what a wonderful experience. As hard as this growth has been, but how much more can I relate to other people, or how much more can I say to other people? Yeah, I went through all these things, not knowing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
But can I just come in there and
yeah,
say,
please, yeah,
what you're saying there is, what more can you say to people? You know, people can read your book.
yeah,
Because I'm sure that there's a lot in your book that you could be saying that you probably just, we forget things, don't we?
yeah.
And you don't know how much your words, whether it's spoke or whether it's written, you don't know how much your words are helping someone else.
That is so beautiful, and you sparked a wonderful memory for me there.
Hmm.
Apart from the different sports coaches I've had, or even different mentors I've had in business,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I remember, again, it's another France story. I was in Corsica, and we worked in a hotel resort for the summer. And in the spare time, I hung out with all the diving instructors,
Hmm.
and I got a number of certificates because we just had time. We would volunteer to help as well, and we got to hang with. Anyways, the short of the story, and one of my certifications, I just had an abysmal dive, and it was like I couldn't do anything right. But they were like, "Look, you've passed," and I even thought, "No, no, this needs to be redone." And we
Uh-huh.
got back up, and the head instructor guy, he's like, "How was it?" I said, "It was terrible." I said, "I was completely off." And he said, "That's okay." He said, "You're a student and you're still learning." I thought, wait, and my spirit just lifted. I thought,
Yeah.
short, sharp, but man, I thought, I've never forgot that.
Uh-huh.
He's like,
Yeah.
"That's okay. You're a student and you're still learning." I thought, man,
Mm.
that is hard.
Exactly. 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 And that's the thing, um, sometimes wouldn't be so hard on myself, wouldn't be almost like perfectionist because we want things to happen, we want things to work out, we want to appear great, you know. But life's life, and we just take it each day as it comes, and we can only just do our best through it, can't we? We can only just learn through living, learn
Yeah,
through living. That's the best way that we can look at it.
yeah. Like that expression that I like to see every now and again. It's everybody dies, but not everybody lives.
Exactly. Exactly. It's right though. It's right.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
great. choice.
I don't want to get to the last breath and have any regrets or have any if onlys,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I would rather own, again, if people want to get deep into conversation, and again, where they talk about we all created these soul contracts.
Uh-huh.
If you want to, if people are wondering like what's the truth of it all, and I don't understand it, I'm
Mhm.
more than happy to say that. But again, the I'm like I would rather make sure I get as much of that list done
Yeah.
that I don't need to come back and do it
Uh-huh.
again.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I would rather, as much as this is a beautiful place and experience, and people listen to the other channeled higher consciousness, and
Hmm.
they all
Hmm.
seem to have the same um, topic that Earth is where consciousness is really evolving right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But this, that, the next way,
Hmm. Hmm.
and as much as we've chose to be here now and then, I would definitely like to be around more of that peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever,
Oh.
whatever, whatever time that I'm given here, I hope that I at least fulfill
Hmm.
that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. So, can I say it's been quite a revelation talking to you today, Ross? And I know that you offer readings. I know that you offer, DEMs, all of that
Mm-hmm.
online as well. So if anyone does want to get in touch with Ross,
Yeah,
you can find him on Facebook. I'm going to include the link in
sure.
description on YouTube.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to get in touch with Ross, feel free. I'm
Please.
sure that, if you want to book him for a read and anything like that, regardless of where you are in the world, I'm sure that you'll have lots of laughter, lots of healing, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy it as well. So I'm going to say, I hope you come back, Ross. I
Thank you.
hope you're happy to come back and speak again. But can
Yeah.
I say thank you very much for sharing your time with us
Hey,
today.
thank you. Yeah, it's been great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you
And,
for inviting
and
me. It's been
well,
fun.
it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. And can I say, next week I have another guest as well that's going to blow your socks off. So for now, I'm going to say, remember to keep your spirit light and your laughter loud, and remember spiritual stuff and fluff. Thank you very much to my guest Ross, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. So bye for now.
Bye bye. Thank you.